Story's tall, stone and timber, its windows catching the light and throwing it back like a warning. Coraly Harlow knelt on the polished ballroom floor, scrubbing so hard that her hands ached and her back burned. Her cotton dress, faded from pale blue to a dull gray, clung damply to her shoulders. A strand of hair fell across her face, and she didn't bother brushing it back. Nobody cared about cleaning girls, and she had learned long ago to make herself invisible. The bucket of soapy water beside her knee seemed like the only companion she had left in a world that had turned its back. 6 months of labor had taught her how to survive quietly. She hauled water, polished silver, and scrubbed floors until the wood shone like honey under the afternoon light. The worst part wasn't the work. It was knowing that somewhere in Prospect Falls, Pierce Vancewood laughed at her with his new fiancé, Tamsin Redmond. He had promised her a future once, flowers, evenings by the fire, maybe even a trip to San Francisco. But that was before the drought, before her family's ruin, before her parents died, leaving her with nothing but an aunt barely able to feed herself. Brenna Ashford appeared in the doorway, her freckled face glowing with a mischievous smile. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere." "I'm working," Coraly said, nodding toward the half-cleaned floor. "You're always working," Brenna said, stepping inside. "Tonight, you stop. There's a ball at the estate." "You're coming with me," Coraly froze. "I don't have anything to wear." "I brought you something," Brenna said, holding out a hand. "It's clean. It fits. Come on." For a moment, Coraly hesitated. She wanted to refuse, to sink back into invisibility. But something in Brenna's eyes stopped her. It wasn't pity. It was stubborn hope, the kind that insisted things could still be good if you reached for them. 2 hours later, Coraly stood in the tiny room she shared with 3 other maids, staring at herself in a cracked mirror. The black dress Brenna had brought was simple, mended in places, but it fit. Her hair was pinned up, though a few rebellious strands escaped. She looked like someone she barely recognized. "You look beautiful," Brenna said, smiling from the doorway. Coraly wanted to vanish, but she took a deep breath and followed Brenna down the stairs, through the back corridors, and into the main hall leading to the ballroom. Music drifted toward them, violins, piano, laughter, and conversation, layered with the scent of roasted meat and fresh bread. Lanterns glowed in every window, casting dancing shadows across the polished floor. And then she saw him, Pierce Vancewood. His eyes found hers, slow and deliberate, a cold flicker crossing his expression. He stepped toward her, Tamsin trailing behind. Well, Coraly Harlow," he said smoothly. "I heard you were working here, but I didn't quite believe it." Coraly forced herself to meet his gaze. "Hello, Pierce." "You should be grateful," he continued, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "The Blackwells are generous to keep you on. After all, who's lining up to marry a woman with nothing?" Her chest tightened. Fury rose like fire in her veins. She had survived losing everything. Her parents, her home, her dignity. And this man, who had abandoned her when she was powerless, now had the audacity to humiliate her in front of everyone. Her eyes scanned the room desperately. Then she saw him, standing at the far edge, leaning against a carved pillar, tall, dark, and solid. Jasper Blackwell, the estate's master of cattle and deals, whose mere presence could bend men and horses alike. His gaze was intense, unreadable, and it fell on her with something she couldn't name. Before she could think, her legs moved. She crossed the ballroom floor, ignoring the startled glances of the guests. She reached him, grabbed the front of his coat, rose on her toes, and kissed him. Hard, raw, deliberate. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then his hands anchored her, drawing her close. The world tilted sideways. The music faded. The murmurs faded. All that existed was him and the heat of the moment. Pulling back just enough to breathe, she turned and met Pierce's shocked expression. "He's my betrothed," she said clearly, loud enough for the entire room to hear. The silence stretched. Then the whispers started, like wind through the tall prairie grass. Jasper's hand remained firm at her back, grounding her. "We need to talk," he murmured. Coraly's pulse raced. What had begun as revenge for Pierce had become something else entirely. She didn't yet know what, but she felt it deep in her chest, alive, seen, and unshakably bold. The veranda was quiet, the night air cool against her heated skin. The sounds of the ballroom faded behind the walls of the Blackwell estate, leaving only the soft murmur of the creek and the occasional lowing of cattle in the distance. Coraly's hands gripped the railing, her knuckles white. Her heart was still hammering from the kiss, from the declaration, from the knowledge that she had finally stood up to Pierce Vancewood and changed everything. Jasper Blackwell stepped closer, the shadow of the lanterns falling across his face. His dark eyes held hers with a weight that made it impossible to look away. "You know what you've done?" he asked quietly, his voice low, calm, but carrying the sort of intensity that could bend people in half. "I wanted him to see," Coraly said, her voice trembling. "I wanted him to understand that I'm not invisible. That I'm not nothing. You've done more than that," Jasper said. "You've tied yourself to me in front of everyone. That kiss, that claim, it changes things. People will expect us to be together. They'll expect a wedding. They'll expect loyalty, respect, the whole world watching our every move." Coraly swallowed hard. "I didn't think." "No," Jasper interrupted, taking a step closer. "You didn't think. And that's why I'm here. You need to learn that claiming someone, even for revenge, carries consequences." She looked at him, her chest tight. "And if I don't want the consequences, you won't have a choice," he said, a faint edge of amusement brushing his voice. "You're mine now. And I'll make sure everyone knows it." Coraly felt her knees weaken slightly, though she straightened herself with stubborn pride. "I accepted this bargain only to hurt Pierce. Only for revenge, nothing more." Jasper tilted his head, studying her. "You think that's all it was?" His gaze darkened, and for the first time, she saw the raw honesty in his eyes. "The moment you kissed me, the moment you called me your betrothed, it wasn't revenge anymore. You wanted to see what would happen. You wanted to feel what it was like to be seen, to be claimed. And you did." Her pulse raced, heat blooming across her cheeks. She had never felt so exposed, so aware of every touch, every look. It felt powerful, she admitted softly, almost a whisper. "Good," he murmured, "because the next few weeks you're going to need that power. You're going to need to walk into rooms like you own them, speak like you mean it, and take up space without apology." Coraly blinked eye. "I don't know if I can." "You can," Jasper said simply. "I'll teach you. I'll remind you what it means to be strong, what it means to be chosen." And so it began. The lessons were brutal in their own way. In the library, he taught her how to carry herself, how to walk into a room like a woman who belonged there. Every step, every motion, every glance had meaning. Her muscles ached, her confidence wavered, but slowly she began to understand. The next lesson came in the empty ballroom, where he taught her to dance. No music, no partners, just him and her. Every step was deliberate, controlled, until she finally moved with him, rather than against him. Her heart had never raced like this before, not from fear, not from excitement, but from a strange, thrilling combination of both. Then came the horses. Coraly hadn't ridden since before her family lost everything. She approached the stable with hesitation, the leather of the saddle cold under her hands, her stomach twisting with anxiety. But Jasper guided her patiently, teaching her how to mount, how to hold herself, how to move with the rhythm of the horse. When she finally rode through the prairie, the wind lifting her hair, the world felt vast and hers again. For the first time in months, she felt free. But even as they trained, as they danced and rode, the past refused to stay buried. A letter arrived one morning, its words sharp and cold. "Your mother was a traitor." Her hands shook as she read it, the blood draining from her face. The revelation clawed at her chest. Had her family's ruin been her mother's doing all along? She confronted Barrett Blackwell at dinner, her voice steady though her heart hammered. "Did you know my mother?" The old man's fork froze midair. "I did briefly," he said, sighing. She made mistakes. She helped a rival forge documents. Your father never knew. I didn't ruin your family. Her choices did." Coraly's world shifted. She fled the dining room, the letter burning in her pocket, and found herself in the library, tears streaming as she tried to reconcile the mother she had loved with the secrets she had kept. Jasper appeared quietly in the doorway, kneeling before her. "Talk to me," he said gently. "I'm the daughter of a criminal," she whispered, voice hollow. "You are the woman who stood in the ballroom and kissed me," he said firmly. "The woman who wrote again, who learned to take up space, who fought for herself. That's the woman I care about. Not your mother, not the past. You." Her tears fell freely, and he held her close, letting her weep against his shoulder. In that embrace, she realized something terrifying and thrilling. Her revenge had become survival, and survival had become something much more. A few days later, danger came to their door. Coraly was ambushed by 3 men on horseback while visiting her aunt. Panic surged as she struggled, but before anyone could harm her, Jasper arrived, rifle in hand, flanked by ranch hands. The men fled, and Coraly's heart pounded in her chest as he pulled her into his arms, checking for injuries, his presence a shield against a hostile world. The weeks that followed solidified their bond. Coraly moved fully into the estate, her life transformed. Jasper taught her the intricacies of running the ranch, negotiating with men who had once dismissed her. She grew stronger, more confident, and finally understood what it meant to be chosen, protected, and desired, not as a pawn, but as a partner. And all the while, the memory of that first ballroom kiss haunted her in the best way possible. It had been a moment of defiance, yes, but it had also been the spark that changed her life forever. She realized with a startling clarity that what had started as revenge had become something she never expected: love. The Wyoming sun had barely risen when Coraly stepped into the Blackwell estate garden, the morning air crisp with the scent of earth and hay. Her hand instinctively rested on her belly, still round with the promise of new life. Jasper was already there, kneeling by the flower beds, his dark hair falling across his forehead as he worked. The quiet strength in his movements made her chest ache. "Morning," she said softly. He looked up, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Morning. You slept well." "I did," she replied, her voice soft, almost reverent. He straightened, brushing dirt from his hands, and held something small out to her. A simple gold ring gleamed in the sunlight. "Marry me," he said, steady and sure. "Not for show, not for a bargain. Marry me because I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it." Coraly's hands trembled as she took the ring. "You're sure?" "Never been more sure," he said. 2 weeks later, they were married under a tall cottonwood tree at the edge of the prairie. Aunt Ma sat in the front row, tears of pride glistening in her eyes. Brenna stood beside Coraly as her witness. Jasper wore a dark suit, sharp and commanding. Coraly's cream-colored dress moved like water with each step she took. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Jasper kissed her, as if sealing a promise meant to last a lifetime. Their life together unfolded like a story written in wide, golden sunlight. The estate thrived under their partnership. Coraly learned the intricacies of managing cattle, negotiating with ranch hands and merchants, and making decisions that once terrified her. Jasper watched her with pride and awe, sometimes across a crowded room, sometimes in the quiet of their home, and she saw reflected in his eyes the same love she felt, fierce and unwavering. The couple expanded the estate, repaired barns, built new fences, and added hundreds of cattle. The Blackwell name became synonymous with power, fairness, and respect throughout Wyoming. Coraly, once a cleaning girl scraping by, became a force in her own right, her voice and intelligence commanding attention alongside her husband. Aunt Ma's health improved, and she moved into a small cottage on the property. Brina married Lawson Kincaid, a kind ranch hand, and Coraly stood beside her, grateful for friends who had weathered storms together. 2 years later, Coraly discovered she was expecting. Jasper's reaction was almost comical. He dropped his fork, stood so quickly his chair tipped over, and kissed her with raw, unfiltered joy. "A baby," he said, his voice rough and full of emotion. "We're having a baby." When their daughter was born on a cold November morning, small and perfect, Jasper held her with reverence, whispering promises of protection, love, and guidance. They named her Linnea M. Blackwell, honoring her aunt and the wildflowers that grew along the creek. In her arms, Coraly realized how far they had come. From scrubbing floors and fighting invisibility, she now held a child and a life built on love and determination. Over the years, they had more children. Alden, strong and thoughtful, and Rowena, bright and curious. The house was alive with laughter, chaos, and warmth. Coraly taught her children to ride, read, and stand tall in a world that had once tried to break them. Jasper taught them the value of courage, patience, and integrity. Even in quiet moments, Jasper and Coraly's love burned brightly. They still teased, argued over small things like land or chores, but every disagreement ended in laughter and intimacy, in the steady reminder that they had chosen each other every day. One evening, long after the children were asleep, Coraly found Jasper in the barn, tending to a mare due to foal soon. She leaned against the stall door, watching him move with effortless strength. "You're staring," he said without looking up. "I'm thinking," she replied, "about the night I kissed you in the ballroom. I was so angry, so desperate. I thought I was using you." "And now?" he asked, brushing hay from his sleeves. "Now I know I wasn't," she said, smiling. "You saw a terrified cleaning girl and turned her into your wife." "Best decision I ever made," Jasper said, pulling her close. "Even if you still step on my feet when we dance." Quote. Coraly laughed, her hands curling into his shirt. "I still think about that night. The way I claimed you, the way you defended me." Jasper's voice dropped low and rough, making her heart leap. "You might not be able to walk after we're done," he murmured. She swatted his chest, laughing through the heat in her veins. "We have 3 children now. I think we've proven that theory several times over." "Doesn't mean I'm done proving it," he said, pulling her close once more. Their lips met, tender, desperate, full of everything they had survived and everything they had built. Coraly rested her head against Jasper's chest, feeling the rise and fall of his heartbeat. The wide Wyoming sky stretched above them, the wind whispering through the tall grass. Their children slept safe, their home full of warmth, and for the first time in her life, Coraly knew that love, real, unyielding, chosen love, was worth every battle, every betrayal, every risk. She had walked into the Blackwell estate for revenge, for survival. Now she stood, fully alive, fully loved, fully claimed. And for the first time, she understood that some bargains were worth far more than she ever imagined. They were the start of everything.